everything is still controlled by Andrew, he could be ordered by a Romanian court to start bringing those assets back and paying them off to a creditor. So step one.
Thank you very much for being on the show. It's truly just an honor to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Giovanni. Looking forward to it.
So Blake, in one of your videos, I heard you say the following, and I wanted to get your feedback on this. I wanted you to elaborate on this.
Oh boy, I'm being held accountable. Bring it on.
So Blake, you said, here's the problem with Andrew Tate's asset protection plan. Andrew Tate talks a lot about having multiple passports, as well as having many different bank accounts all over the world. If you directly control all of these accounts, a court can still order you to pay out that money. A Cook Islands Asset Protection Trust, Andrew could still have access to all of his money. He could direct how that money is invested. However, a court could not order him to hand over those assets. In terms of having the physical assets located outside the jurisdiction that Andrew is in, he's done a great job. In terms of having control over his assets located away from where he is, this is where his plan appears to lack. If Andrew wants to fix this component of his plan, all he needs to do is give me a call.
So in terms of asset protection, there's two aspects to a proper asset protection plan. First of all, there's the physical asset. So you want to have the asset itself held outside of the jurisdiction where you're concerned about litigation arising. So if you're concerned about a potential business dispute or divorce within the United States, you want to have your money somewhere outside the United States, such as Switzerland. However, simply having the asset beyond the reach of the U.S. court system is not enough if the U.S. court system could reach you, the controlling party. So what you want to do is have the control of the asset also held outside the United States in a jurisdiction such as the Cook Islands, Nevis, or Belize. Once the trust is registered offshore and the trustee controls the asset and the money's outside the United States, at that time, you have what I consider real asset protection, the ability to tell a creditor, hey, you can push forward with this lawsuit, but if you do, you're not going to be able to get anything out of this trust. So Andrew talks a lot about having bank accounts all over the world, which I encourage, certainly with clients with the appropriate level of net worth. However, if everything is still controlled by that individual, if everything is still controlled by Andrew, he could be ordered by a Romanian court to start bringing those assets back and paying them off to a creditor. So step one, set up the offshore trust with a foreign trustee. Step two, open a foreign bank account. And then at that time, Andrew can have a secure asset protection plan.
It's powerful. It's very good information.
I believe so, yes.
So, Blake, correct me if I'm wrong. So you mentioned divorce, right? So let's say a couple gets married. They don't have a prenup. 10 years after, they decide to get a divorce. If let's say the man, he all of a sudden he wants to create a Cook Islands trust where his assets are not, I guess, in danger, let's say. Can something be created to the point that if they divorce, his assets won't be affected?
So let's put things in perspective. Divorce is the most common lawsuit in America. Okay. And with any type of litigation, I always advise my client to make a settlement offer. Most any type. Now, if it's a complete BS claim, we just tell the creditor to go take a hike. But if there's a legitimate claim and there is some harm done or a reason that the plaintiff is owed some money, I'm going to advise my client to make a settlement offer. However, we need the client to be able to get a reasonable settlement. We want the client to be able to settle on terms that are acceptable to them and that are fair and reasonable. And in some cases, if you don't have any asset protection in place, your back's up against the wall and you're just going to be taken advantage of by a plaintiff. So even in the event of divorce, an individual can set up an asset protection trust, and this is going to give them power over their assets so they don't get taken advantage of. So yes, with a properly constructed asset protection trust, you can mitigate the negative financial effects of a divorce.
It's very interesting. I've heard of many empires that have been built and afterwards they've been destroyed because of a divorce.
It can be an extremely costly and hard time. I think that a prenup is something wise to have. It may upset your future spouse if you bring it up. You can create a trust without discussing it with your partner. However, I don't recommend relying on a prenup alone. Family law courts can be very aggressive, and in many cases, prenups are disregarded. It's an extra tool to provide some level of protection, but a prenup alone is not a secure way to protect your wealth.
Wow. So, Blake, you graduated law school back in 2010. Why did you decide to go into asset protection?
Because I thought I could make a lot of money.
Okay.
I mean, that's the short answer. Solve problems for rich people, get rich yourself was kind of the ideal. I grew up in a family of litigators. I have several family members, not going to say which ones, who spend a lot of time in the courtroom going after people with money. I wanted to offer a different solution to that. I wanted to offer an ability to avoid that entire court process, do something for our clients that will allow them to keep their money, have peace of mind about their future, and not worry that some plaintiff attorney, like a member of my family, could come after them and cause everything that they've worked for to be compromised. So shortly after graduating law school, I went and worked for another trust law firm, and then I went out on my own. And once I started my own firm, I met another attorney. His name is Barry Engel. His name was Barry Engel. He's since passed away. Wow. Barry was the attorney who wrote the initial trust legislation for the Cook Islands, and he was a mentor of mine for many years. During that time, I learned a lot about how this business works, and then I got a much deeper understanding by actually traveling to the Cook Islands, Switzerland, Nevis, Belize, Cayman Islands, Seychelles. There have been dozens of different jurisdictions I've visited over the course of my career where I built relationships with trust companies, bankers, protectors, attorneys, and gained a much deeper knowledge of how the business works, and gained more and better resources for my clients who we can then utilize those tools to help protect their assets. And through the process, not only have I learned more than I could ever learn by reading a book or than they teach in law school, but I was also, or I have been able to negotiate better deals for my clients. So what might cost a client twice as much somewhere else, we can get that for a much better value for our clients. So it started off early, and I will say in law school, the only time I ever heard mention of an offshore trust was when my trust professor, excellent professor, really got everyone interested in trust law. I'm surprised we all didn't go into the trust field after that class. The only time he ever mentioned, great professor. The only time he ever mentioned an offshore trust, though, he said, "Don't ever set one up." So I actually went by and saw him after class one day and said, "You said don't ever set up an offshore trust. Why is that?" And he said, "Well, don't ever set up an offshore trust unless certain criteria is met." And I said, "Okay, keep preaching this. I don't want any competition from my classmates. I'll be the one that goes into that very small niche area of law." And I've done that, and I've been doing this for over a decade, and I've absolutely loved it.
Did that criteria that he mentioned, does it apply?
Yes, certainly. Okay. I mean, you don't want to deal with clients who are engaged in criminal activity. You don't want to deal with clients who work with clients who are looking to avoid IRS reporting requirements. And you want to find clients who would appreciate the peace of mind that comes with knowing their assets are protected. Yes, they're very great tools for protecting money, but I also consider them kind of like a sleep medicine. You can sleep better at night knowing that in the event that you're going to be sued, and in America, a lawsuit is a badge of success. If you're successful enough, you can expect at some point to be sued. So yes, it's been a great career. I've spoken with literally thousands of people about their asset protection planning over the course of my career, and I continue to do this all day, every day.
Wow. You mentioned that your professor said, well, he advised you not to work with people that want to avoid the IRS, and I want to touch up on that in just a couple of minutes.
Sure.
But to go back, what advice would you give? I have two questions for you. Number one, what advice would you give to someone that's in law school right now to really become successful as an attorney? And number two, it might be impossible, but have you ever ran up against one of the litigators in your family? No, right?
Okay, so I'll answer the second question. I'll answer both, but as far as the second question is, no, I've never had any litigation that I have done against my family members. Majority of the time, my family members are going after insurance companies.
Okay.
What has been great about coming from a family of attorneys is the knowledge base that we share. And the Rothschild family goes back to a European banker who had 5 sons and sent them to 5 different countries to all start banks in different parts of Europe. It goes something like that. I'm not exactly sure how the story goes. Not only did they come well capitalized, but they came back to the family each year and brought the knowledge that they had gained. And through that, they were able to share it with each other. And I feel very blessed that I was able to enter law school knowing more about certainly the business of law, maybe not the actual practice of law, but knowing more about the business of law that most attorneys 5 years out of law school had. So that was certainly a big leg up and advantage that I had. But you don't need to have that leg up and advantage, certainly not now in the day of the internet, where you can find mentors and you can find people to learn from directly. And there have been law students who have reached out to me over the years. The first thing that I say to anyone in school is avoid anything that can, and this may seem basic, but it is helpful advice for some, avoid anything that can get you arrested and avoid anything that can get you addicted. Don't do anything to screw yourself up for the long run. Once you've done that, find something that interests you. If you're going to go into a field of law that does not interest you, you're never going to dig deep into it. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be your passion. I don't necessarily believe that you need to be passionate about it, but it needs to be something that you can spend a lot of time researching and diving deep into, because you want to be the best in your particular field. And if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to go deeper into it. The man who enjoys the walk is going to go much farther than the man who enjoys the destination.
Wow.
So find something that really flows with your life, with your way of thinking. Wow. So that's step one, finding an area of law that fits you. And it's okay to try a few different areas of law. If the first few years of your legal career you don't feel like you're really jiving in one particular area, that's fine. Take some time early in your career to figure out what really fits with you, what you can do confidently, what you can do and sleep well at night and feel good about it. Once you've picked your niche, the next step is to become the expert in that area. Dig into it deeper and harder than anyone else. I have had my own firm for about 10 years. It's not for everyone, but for me, it's been a great thing because, number one, I am able to work harder and get compensated better because of my hard work that I don't think a bigger firm would recognize me for my efforts. Two, it's allowed me to live the life that I want to live. I can take off time to spend time with my kids when I want to spend time with my kids, or to pursue any other activity or interest. And when I want to work, I'm not prevented from digging deep into work on a Saturday night. So as far as law students are concerned, other advice for law students: get to know everyone in your class. Somebody in your class may very well be the next governor. Someone in your class may be the next attorney general. Someone in your class may be the next John Morgan. Get to know your classmates. Also, to the point that you can network and meet with other attorneys, do that. And then beyond that, I would say don't be afraid to reach out. One of my very first jobs, I was 16 years old. I had a vending machine route where you'd drop in a quarter and you get a little handful of M&Ms. I had to go door to door and knock on doors in order to get those machines placed. Although that business, which I did for a few years, might have made me $2,000 in total, it got me past a fear of knocking on doors. I've now over 10 years, actually I'm close to 15 years of being an attorney at this point in time. Last month, I went and knocked on the door of a trust company down in Turks and Caicos. Still not afraid to make that cold contact. And I think that skill has been very helpful. When I first reached out to Barry Engel, my initial mentor, that was a cold call. And there have been plenty of people who have reached out to over the years that have ignored me or rejected me. But the few who have been willing to work with me, have been very helpful in my career. And the farther you get into your career, the more you become an authority yourself, the easier it is to connect with people, and the more that people actually come and connect with you. I received a LinkedIn message about a year ago from an attorney at one of the world's largest law firms who was familiar with Cook Islands Trust. We got on a phone call, quickly hit it off. In no time, I was sending him business. I was hiring him to do some work. So don't be afraid to go knock on doors. The law school is going to do a great job of teaching you how to study the book and spit back the information. But if you're going to be a successful attorney, you've got to have the business skills. And the best way to learn to ride a bike is jumping on the bike and doing it. So, and finally, don't be afraid to put yourself out there a little bit too. Social media is the way of the future. I tell the story that car accident attorneys 30 years ago, the ones who went on television, got rich.
Yep.
Now, the attorneys who are willing to put themselves on social media are going to be the ones who see the most success in their career. It used to be frowned upon for attorneys to advertise. I feel just the opposite about attorneys. If I meet an attorney and they have no presence online, they're not willing to go on video and say the things say things which shows that they stand by what they say, I'm a little skeptical of that attorney. But if somebody has a YouTube channel and has videos of them preaching and they have permanent record of what they're saying, I think that's an attorney who I trust more.
Wow. Everything that you said right now, I feel like anyone that's watching this, whether they're in law school, whether they're a business owner, they own a construction company, whatever it is that they do, what you said right now was so powerful.
Yes, I mean that applies to law students, but it also applies to where law students should be looking, and general business owners as well. Yes. I've got a friend who runs a painting company. He started the company about 2 years ago. I don't know which end of a paintbrush to use, but over the course of my career, I've made a lot of business mistakes. Nothing that has harmed a client, but just in terms of marketing and advertising and hiring. Mm-hmm. And from those mistakes, I was able to part a lot of knowledge that helped save him a lot of headache along the way. Yes. And finding other business owners, other peers. I've got another friend who does IRS tax resolution. We meet once or twice a year when I'm in Denver, and we get together and just compare how it is to run a small business, what's working for us. So finding mentors and peers are great as well. And if you have the opportunity to mentor someone, now if you're in law school, not a lot of people are looking for a mentor as a law student, but once you get to that point, do it. Investing in people who are early in their career will pay large dividends in the long run.
One of the things that stood out the most was when you said right now that as a 16-year-old, you had a business, a vending machine business, and you had to go door to door, pretty much make a cold contact, freezing contact, frozen contact. And I feel like I can't emphasize that enough, the importance of being able to reach out to someone that doesn't know you and doesn't know that you exist, and go and
like
knock
you
on
did.
that door. Yes, like I did.
They got us together.
And it's so important to have that skill, and I feel like people are so afraid of that rejection, but little do they know that every no gets you closer to that yes. And you're one yes away from changing the trajectory of your life, literally.
Success does not look like this. That is not the course to success. I have had friends who have done very well, and nobody's success path looks like this. It looks like this, and it continues to go up and to go up and down. And when things are going well, that's great, but you tend to party. I like to party, don't get me wrong. Not as much as I did back in law school, but that's another story. But when things are going down is when you really have to analyze and ponder. Yes. And all greatness comes from that pondering. So what's important is that you don't give up. You're going to get knocked down. You're going to get rejected. You're going to get turned down. But keep trying, keep playing, keep pushing forward. And through that effort is where you will survive.
Yes.
Thrive.
That's true. Thrive, not survive. Two things that you said. One thing that you said was that being around a family of attorneys, you certainly learned kind of like the business of law, and also that skill of being able to make cold reach outs. Aside from those two things, to what else do you attribute the success that you've had in your firm?
what else do I attribute the success I've had in my firm beyond just the willing to cold call? Hunger. When I moved out to Denver, I didn't know a single person. I went with my partner, but didn't know a single person professionally. When I would get a lead, it to me was a golden lead. It could have been somebody looking to spend $200 on creating a simple power of attorney, a will for $250. I treated that like I was dealing with Warren Buffett. I would answer the call as quick as possible, get to meet with them as quick as possible. I was even doing home visits early in my career. I remember once I drove about 2 hours to meet with a woman who paid me about $300, drove 2 hours back. She was happy with the service. She left a good five-star review, and I was thrilled to make $200 in a day at the beginning of my career. So I think fast service is important. Finding mentors is very important. Reinvesting. Now, when I was initially looking out for mentors, I was early in my career and I didn't have much to spend on them. Some of my mentors, or most of my mentors now, I pay for their time. I'm more than happy to do so because I know they will give me the right answer and give it to me quickly. So buying mentorship is wise as well. I'm also a believer that your mind and your body are all connected, and doing something that keeps you active is important as well. I start most mornings with a nice long stretch on the beach, and it gets me to the point where I feel good about myself. We were discussing this before we turned on the cameras about how you have a history of boxing, and I do some MMA myself as well. But if you throw 1,000 punches in the morning, nobody getting upset at you, nothing is going to upset you during the rest of the day. Yes. And you've got to watch out for that, because as attorneys, we are brought trauma all day long. I often ask the question, how are you doing today? And a prospective client will say to me, well, not having my best day. And I say, nobody ever calls me on their best day. If they're on their best day, they're not looking for an asset protection attorney. But we're brought this trauma, and it's true across most areas of the law, constantly being brought and dealt with trauma. And we're, as law students, we're not taught how to process that and how to make sure it doesn't affect us. Actually, we're taught after you deal with all of your clients' problems all day, the right thing to do is go and network with other attorneys over some booze.
Terrible.
And I mean, there's a place in life for booze, perhaps, but that is what leads a lot of attorneys to burnout, a lot of attorneys to get corrupted and do inappropriate things that compromise their integrity as an attorney or make them not passionate or excited to be in the practice of law anymore. So maintaining a balanced life is very important as well. The up and downs along the way, as I said, they are inevitable. And during the downs is when you really recalculate and realize, what do I have here? Maybe your business last year was making you $1 million, and this year you're losing $10 million. What do you still have? Do you still have the friends? Have you maintained the right friendships along the way? Do you still have the family? And if so, you're going to be fine. They're going to bounce you back and get you on your feet again until you can start flourishing again. And with that, you'll bring them all up along the way. So I think that there's more than just the academic focus to success. You want to develop yourself personally. I have traveled a bit over the course of my life. I found that to be very beneficial. However, I don't necessarily recommend travel for everyone. You travel if it is going to improve you, if you're going to grow and get better from it. And so for me, it's been a wonderful thing, professionally and personally. And I also believe I do a good job of investing with my friends and a very good job of investing with my family. I have children. I do travel a bit, but I still make a point to FaceTime with them every single day. And whenever I'm with them, really take time and really focus on them. That being said, my children do still see dad work because I have a business. I have to continue to grow. And I think it's important that my children see that their father works, so they have the same expectations for themselves as they get older as well. So take care of your mind, your body, and your spirit as well. And don't ever give up. Surround yourself with the right people.
Wow.
And distance yourself from the right people as well. If you have a toxic person in your life, you have to get away from them, and it doesn't matter if it means cutting off your left arm to do that. You will flourish when you are in the right environment.
Why are you saying that? Did that happen to you?
All of us at some point along the way have allowed someone in their life who shouldn't be in there. Yes, I mean, there were some people who I needed to pull away from at a certain point during your life, and any toxic person probably comes with some sweet, charming trait or something that made you want to stay connected to them, whether you're in a relationship with them or they're a family member or just a friend that you've had over a long, long time. I don't buy into this philosophy that you should change who your friends are over the years. You should change who your mentors are, and certainly you should help a friend who's going through a tough time. But if somebody is a down person, if they are going in a direction in their life that is not going to change, and you, for your sake and for their sake, need to get away from it. You don't want to be brought down, and by helping them and facilitating their path, you're doing them a disservice. It doesn't matter if the person is your closest and best family member, friend. If they're taking the wrong path with their life and they're choosing to, you're not going to be able to change them. You can only sacrifice yourself. If you want to improve somebody around you, the best thing you can do, improve yourself. Live life as an example. They're going to see, oh my gosh, I am struggling in certain ways. Blake is my friend. He's not making the same poor decisions I am. And I actually see that Blake is flourishing and he is still happy. Yes, he has his battles that he's fighting. The best thing you can do is be an example yourself.
Wow. Going back for a second, right now when you were mentioning the mental aspect of things, the spiritual aspect of things. Yesterday, I had a very successful guest in my podcast, very successful guest. And that's something that he mentioned, that in order for anyone to become successful, there are 4 areas that have to be right in one way or another. It's like a rectangle with 4 corners, and those 4 corners are your mental, your physical, your spiritual, and there has to be some sort of love for something, whether that's a family member or love for what you do. But that's very true what you said right now.
Something to look forward to is important. I have a daughter. I've taken her to the daddy-daughter dance every year for the past few years. She's aged out of that at school, but I've told her we're still going to go dancing every single year going forward. So the two of us have that to look forward to every year going forward. I take both my children on a trip every year to the Caribbean, and that's something that we're going to have to look forward to every year. If you have a partner, take time to still date your spouse and take time for the two of you to spend special time together. Having something to look forward to is very important.
Do you feel like your hunger kind of changed after you had kids?
I think, if anything, I got hungrier. I mean, instead of 1-2 mouths to feed, we had 4 mouths to feed. I've got twins, so 2 popped out all at once. Wow. I get calls from clients at 7, 8, 9 p.m. and I'm still taking those calls if I'm available to.
A lot of attorneys don't do that.
A lot of attorneys don't do that, and clients say to me, wow, I didn't expect you to get back to me so quickly. And my response is, it's a habit that I started early in my career and I just haven't been able to break, and quite frankly don't want to. Nobody calls me and says, hey, I want to set up an offshore trust. Can you take a long time to set it up? Yeah. People are generally pretty motivated if they're talking to me, and speed is important. I also think it sets the tone for the relationship. Now, if I've been working with a client for a while and they contact me, me or my team will get back to them promptly, but it may not be immediate. Once they know that if they need to get a hold of me quickly, they will be able to access me to get a hold of me quickly.
And that's worth a lot of money.
There's a lot of trust and confidence that is built by having an attorney who responds to you quite quickly. So, yes. I will say I'm not driving 2.5 hours to go pick up a client for $300 anymore. Yes. But in terms of getting on a phone with a client quickly, I still do that. In terms of still traveling to build the best Rolodex of any attorney in the offshore industry. I still am pushing hard to do that. I would say that the hunger is still there. I mean, it's changed in certain ways. I definitely have more of a cushion and nest egg and some running room or some assets and things built up, reputation built up, which I didn't have at the beginning of the career. But I would say that the drive is still there. And with any long journey, whether you're looking to grow a business or change your health, as huge as the task may seem ahead of you, once you start getting momentum. And once you start getting the momentum, it does become easier in a way, in a lot of ways.
That's true. When you mentioned that you hire mentors, pretty much, do you hire mentors to teach you about trusts and the laws of trusts? Or is it more towards like the business aspect of law? What do you mean by that? And also, I can imagine that creating an offshore trust is not the easiest thing to do. What are some
easy for me?
Huh?
It's pretty easy for me. But
no, I mean after so long, but it's not something that that's done like this. What would you say are the most common legal challenges that you face when creating an offshore trust?
So I have a very niche practice. I don't try to do a lot of different things. I focus exclusively on offshore planning.
Wow.
In terms of challenges in general, the biggest challenge is simply converting a potential client to a client and getting them comfortable with working with who's this trustee over in some small country that I might not have heard of or I thought was in the Caribbean. No, it's north of New Zealand, to manage my assets. That is a big part of what I do, convincing clients that you can trust these offshore banks and offshore trust companies. And I do it through, number one, talking about the banks and the trust companies. They've been in business for decades. They're managing billions of dollars in assets, but I also impress upon my close relationship. Just this morning, I was having breakfast with the CEO of Capital Security Bank, which is the international bank in the Cook Islands. Next week, the managing director from one of the trust companies in the Cook Islands is coming to meet with me. We're going to take a walk on South Beach.
Wow.
I go every year to the Cook Islands and Switzerland to help maintain these relationships. It is a changing field. So to get your question about the challenge, it's keeping up with the changes in the field. The banks are continuously changing the rules and the requirements for onboarding a client. The trust companies are changing their KYC, know your customer, and due diligence process. So being able to keep up with the changing laws that take place overseas, as well as the changing laws domestically, different exemptions and homestead protections, different types of protections are continuously changing in the United States as well, which is why I tell prospective clients, work with an attorney who really focuses in this area, because if you're trying to keep up with all the different changing rules and regulations that govern the offshore industry and run another type of practice, it's unlikely going to work out. It's very unlikely that you're going to be able to do two things well. So I say do one thing well. And in terms of keeping up with the changes in the laws, well, that's a lot of what I'm doing when I'm meeting with other people in the industry. Not only am I abreast of the current law, but I like to keep a close thumb on where the changes in the laws are. There's another country that has a good asset protection law in place. However, the government continues to threaten to repeal or weaken that law. So I'm avoiding setting up trust in that jurisdiction because I don't want to set up a trust and then 3 years down the road, the government change their mind and say, we're not going to give the same protection to these. So does require...
So they can be affected if the laws change?
Well, it depends if they grandfather in the previous trust or not. Okay. But I don't want to risk that it does not get grandfathered in. I mean, we do have backup safety nets built in so that we can relocate trust to another jurisdiction if this happened, but I'd rather just set it up right from the very beginning.
Based on what you said right now, I'm sure that you have a lot of great connections with very powerful and influential people. Do you think you get a lot of introductions from those very powerful and maybe people that have been in the field of what they do for many, many years? Do you get a lot of introductions from them for clients? And also, if someone doesn't trust you, they're not going to do business with you. How do you, I mean, I'm sure you only work with clients that have a decent amount of net worth. How do you build that trust with someone? Because they're pretty much talking about their assets and things that they own. How do you build that trust with someone?
Sure. That's the name of the game. I mean, you have to have trust in the trust field. And in terms of helping clients to build trust with my law firm, there's a lot that I point to. Number one, we specialize in just offshore trust. Okay. I'm licensed in both Florida and Colorado and have a perfectly clean record. We have excellent online reviews, including video testimonials from several offshore providers in the industry. All of that is on my website. I have written a book on this subject as well, and I've been quoted in countless articles and magazines that have been published, from Forbes to Market Watch to many others. I teach continuing education. So other attorneys who do this type of work, I've taught other attorneys how to do this type of work. I believe the social media actually certainly builds trust as well. Some of my clients have been watching me for years, talk not just about asset protection, but talk about my life in general, painting that I am a real human being behind what I say. I think that what really builds trust is simply having clients talk to me. And when you talk to someone and they can articulate complex concepts in simple terms, it really builds the confidence. So there's a few different strategies in terms of famous or centers of influence who I work with. Yes, I do have some famous clients that you would know. Of course, I can't say who what their names are. Some of them have been sources of leads and have sent clients my way. The most powerful lead source, though, is still the internet, Google, social media. Those two are the biggest drivers for my business.
What's the net worth of your average client?
So average, okay, well, let's go with the median, because average is going to be a little bit skewed because of the few very large clients. But I'd say the median client net worth is probably just shy of $5 million. Okay. I would say in order to set up a Cook Islands Trust, I generally don't recommend it unless the client has close to around $1 million in assets. Okay. Most of my clients have between $1 and $10 million in assets. Some have a little bit under $1 million. Some have well beyond $10 million. But the majority have between about $1 and $10 million in assets.
Interesting. If we were to lay out on this table like multiple funnels of where all your clients come from, what percentage would come for example, from introductions? What percentage would come from social media and your website? Like, what are the sources and the percentages that you get your clients from, if you had to say a number?
So I would say we'll go with 30% Google.
Wow.
If you type in Cook Islands Trust Attorney, there's a pretty good chance my firm shows up on the first page, maybe as the first result.
How much do you pay for that?
So we do Google advertising, which I spend on. We do SEO, which I spend on as well, but it's a little bit harder to calculate. The spend on Google advertising, you spend $100, someone clicks on it, they see, someone types in Cook Islands Trust Attorney, they click on my page, it costs $100, maybe they hire us for $25,000.
So if someone looks, well, I don't want to.
Go for it. Jump in.
If someone looks
These are
you
questions
up.
your listeners, viewers want to see.
If someone looks you up and you're the first name that comes up and they click on it, that's $100 taken away from your bank account.
So it's a very complex formula that goes into determining the pricing, but generally some of the AdWords that we run are around $100.
Wow. So
now, if somebody clicks on it time after time after time, Google recognizes, hey, Giovanny is not really interested. He's just trying to run a Blake's credit card bill.
Makes sense.
The second time they might charge me $90, and then might drop to $10, and there might be a penny each time after that.
Makes sense. So, excuse me, I interrupted you. What were you saying your other sources?
Okay, so 30% is, and I'd say half of that is Google advertising, half of that is SEO. I have written lots of articles on the subject of international asset protection, and Google has ranked those articles as well as some of the videos associated with the articles. Another 30% is social media. I'm very active on social media, TikTok being my largest following. Even though the followings are much smaller on YouTube and Instagram, relatively speaking, I do better on those two platforms. People are maybe in a better position to financially than those on TikTok, though I do speak to a millionaire pretty much every single day from TikTok and a decamillionaire at least once a month from TikTok. YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, and I was actually apprehensive of Facebook for a while because it's not cool, but my potential customers are out there, so I have even dug into Facebook as well. So that's about 60% of the business. The remaining 40%, I would say about 20% coming from other attorneys who have attended one of my continuing education classes, or my name is just out there and among attorneys, and then another 20% from past clients who have referred me to someone who needs asset protection planning. Doctors kind of operate in herds, and if you get a couple at a hospital, you'll get more from the same association.
How would you explain to someone that's a business owner, perhaps an attorney that owns their own law firm, the importance of investing in marketing? And would you mind telling us like a round number of how much you spend in marketing a year?
I'll play with an open card. All in, somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million a year in marketing. Wow. Google AdWords, maybe a couple $1,000s a day right there. I'd say maybe around $3,000 a day is spent between Google advertising, between developing and creating content and keeping the website up, and updates to the website, as well as editing of videos. I don't do my own video editing. If you're a young attorney starting your own firm, you can create content on your own and not spend any money on it. And when I started my own firm, I didn't have money to pay somebody to edit, and I would edit videos myself. I would script videos myself. I would do everything myself. Now it has been nice getting farther into my career where I can outsource a lot of that. And when you outsource it, you can actually have an expert in video editing handle it and not have to handle it in-house myself. So the video quality has gotten better over time too. But you don't have to have that. And some of the videos that went most viral, I didn't have anyone edit. I just snapped it on my TikTok and said something I know about Swiss banking, and 30 seconds later I have it posted, and 2 days later I've gotten 50 leads from it. Wow. Now, that's not the usual results, but if you don't shoot your shot, you're never going to win the game. So yes, I invest quite a lot in marketing and advertising. The best marketing, without a doubt, is doing a good job for our clients. And it's because of that I overhire. I have several paralegals who work with me, and I want my paralegals to be twiddling their thumbs. I want them to not be busy. A lot of people have the idea of, I have staff, I have to keep them busy all the time. No, I want my staff to have nothing to do. That way, when a client calls in, we can respond to them quickly. That way, when somebody needs something done, we can get right on top of it. That way, when the phone rings by 7 different callers and 5 different clients all email us at once, we're not getting backlogged. The best thing you can do to market a business is do a good job for your clients, and we invest in that as heavily as well. And with that, I give my employees the best technology, and I treat my employees very well. Unlimited vacation. They can take time off without even asking permission. Just mark it on the calendar. If a client is being a jerk, we'll fire them. I'm early in my career, I had to sell my soul a little bit, or maybe not sell my soul, but I dealt with a lot that I wouldn't deal with anymore. But early in your career, you have to kind of take what you can find. Now, if someone's an energy suck, I don't want to deal with them, and I'm not going to subject my staff to abuse. And because of that, they're loyal and they stay around, and clients appreciate that, as opposed to having a rotating support staff knowing that, oh, wow, we worked with your paralegal 5 years ago. She's still here. It gives people confidence. It gives people confidence in how you do business and who you are. So I think marketing goes beyond just advertising dollars, but it's how you run your business and how you treat your customers as well.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people would enjoy having you as their employer.
It's funny. I just in the past week posted a handful of videos which were hypothetical questions for my boss, and questions were like, well, what if I use the company credit card to go buy a boat? And I said, well, are we going to use this boat to go visit the Cook Islands and the Cayman Islands? I mean, this needs to be a tax write-off. Or what if I had a few drinks before I came to work? Well, I'd get you an Uber and send you home and never talk about it again. So it's and to the point that I feel like I'm a good employer, I have to say thank you to my employees.
Wow.
You can only be as good of an employer as your employees allow you to be.
True.
And I have built the right team that allows me to focus on growing the business, on helping customers. I'm not having to, I do double check the work of my team, but there's not a lot that really needs me to correct. They have been very well trained, or they just come in and they are individuals who just don't make a lot of mistakes. And in the legal field, that's vital.
Wow. So this might be kind of a complicated question for people watching this, but I'm just going to go ahead and ask you regardless. So as some people know, there's a federal estate tax here in Florida. We don't have a state estate tax. And currently the exemption, just to say round numbers, for a single person, it's 13 million, and then married, 26 million. When you first mentioned the criteria that your professor told you about in your trust class when you were in law school, you said that one of the reasons not to work with someone is if they want to avoid the IRS. And estate taxes, clearly it's the IRS. So is there a legal way to avoid estate taxes legally with a Cook Islands trust or an offshore trust? Is there?
Okay, so let's talk about this in a couple of different ways. What my professor was referring to is if a client is looking to hide money from the IRS, commit tax evasion, we don't do that, of course.
Okay.
Some people think you can do that with an offshore trust. No trust company is going to assist in doing that. It permanently taints the attorney, the trust company. I mean, they could all end up in jail. It taints the entire country that allows that type of activity to go on.
For sure.
With an offshore trust, you do have to report to the IRS that you have an offshore trust. It does not increase your taxes. It does not decrease your taxes. Okay. It is a tax neutral structure. As a client of mine, we do give our clients a detailed memorandum on how to complete all the offshore reporting requirements, Form 3520, 3520, the FBAR. And then with that, we can also make an introduction to a CPA who can help our client complete their IRS reporting requirements. They're really not that big of a deal. Essentially, you send the memo to your CPA, and then you sign off on the documents they send your way. In terms of estate tax planning, so if a client has a net worth of over $13 million as an individual, $26 million as a married couple, I will bring in outside estate tax attorney who can discuss different strategies for reducing your estate tax. The estate tax is a combined life and death, $13 million. So if you give away $5 million while you're alive, you can give away $8 million after you pass away. If you give away nothing while you're alive, you can give away $13 million after you pass away. Beyond that, the additional money that you pass on is taxed, we'll just say at about 40%. The goal is to, through that $13 million amount that you can give away estate tax free, squeeze as much through that hole as possible. So if you have an asset that you believe is going to appreciate, for example, a life insurance policy that you paid $1 million for, and when you die is going to pay out $10 million, that's a great asset to give away while you're alive, typically through a irrevocable life insurance trust and ILET. So that reduces your estate tax, gift tax exemption from $13 million to $12 million.
Okay.
But when you die, your kids, your beneficiaries, whoever you choose, receives $10 million. but it only ate up $1 million of your exemption. Another example is if you have stock in a privately held company that there might be an IPO for, and that could go from $2 a share to $200 a share, giving it away. So it's very much a game of timing. There are other strategies available for your primary home, which is called a QPER, a Qualified Personal Resident Trust, that can reduce the value of that home and the value of that gift. Another thing to be aware of is there's an annual gift that you can give and not even have to report it to the IRS, which is around $15,000. It changes every year.
Very small.
There's a lot of confusion on that number. If you give away more than $15,000, you don't get taxed, assuming you're still under the $13 million lifetime exemption. You simply have to report it to the IRS. Now, if you want to give away money to a family member, I recommend going a few hundred or even $1,000 less than whatever it is, because if you give away the full amount of the annual gift and then you also decide later to buy them a pair of shoes, you're over at your inviting room for an IRS audit. So I recommend giving away a little bit less, whatever the annual amount is. But if you're dealing with grandma who's got 4 kids and 10 grandkids and 5 great-grandchildren, $15,000 times 5 plus 4 plus 3 times 10 years, that's a nice chunk of money that she can give away completely tax-free and not even have to report it to the IRS.
Makes sense when you think about it like that. Can you share with us, without sharing any names or any confidential information, a success story that stands out the most?
Sure. So we'll call this client Tom the trucker. Tom built a trucking company pretty much from scratch. He spent 20 years building up this company. As he got closer to the retirement age, he sought out a buyer for the company. He was able to find a large corporation who stepped in to buy his business. The deal closed for about $12 million. Shortly after the deal closed, he was wise and he set up a Cook Islands trust. So the buyer sent him $12 million. He sent a chunk of that to the IRS and then settled his trust for around, let's say, $8 million. About 6 months later, the new owner had managed to really screw up the business that Tom sold him. The new owner claimed Tom did not disclose certain facts about the business. Tom said, I built this business from scratch. I knew how to run it very well. You just didn't understand how to run the business as well as I did. The new owner sued Tom for the full $12 million, which would leave Tom in the red because a portion of that had already gone to the IRS. Because Tom had the Cook Islands Trust, he was able to negotiate and was able to reach a settlement of around $180,000. Pennies on the dollar. No way to know how things would have turned out if he didn't have a Cook Islands Trust, but I think the $25,000 he spent to set up the trust was well worth it compared to the millions of dollars that the plaintiff was coming after him for.
Do you think he would have been liable for a much bigger amount, like closer to $12 million, or what do you think based on your experience?
So this is one of the things with asset protection. There's a lot you don't know. You don't know how things would have worked out if you took a different strategy or had a different attorney. Every attorney likes to claim they're the best in their field, but there's really no way of knowing. I mean, there's a lot of credentials I could point to that I would like to make an argument for myself, but the reality is you never know how things are going to be. It's kind of like a marriage. You don't know how a marriage would have gone with another person. So would the results have been different? The honest answer is I don't know, but I would suspect it would have been very different. Very, very different is what I suspect.
What about a very difficult case that was brought into your desk and you thought, oh my God, what am I going to do with this? Something that you had to get really creative about. So
there was a few that there are a few that come to mind, and sometimes clients wait until they have litigation to contact my law firm, and in that case we'll still review the situation and see if it is an appropriate situation to take them on as a client. Now, if they're being investigated by a 3-letter agency of the federal government, we do not take on the federal government. That being said, There are times when Cook Islands Trust have been used successfully to fend off claims by the federal government, but we will not create a trust with the intention of protecting from the federal government. It would be a felony to do so. But let's say it's a situation where it's not the government on the other end; they just have a very aggressive creditor. We'll do an analysis of their current asset protection plan, and perhaps they have some asset that we're going to leave out of the plan, which will be enough to cover the debt, but it's an asset that a plaintiff is probably not going to want. And then we'll protect the rest of their assets. The cash, put those into a Swiss bank account backed by Cook Islands Trust, and then leave some asset here that may require special knowledge on how to handle, or that may not be as valuable to a third party, or it could be expensive to sell. In doing so, this still gets our clients some bargaining power. And that's the name of the game, Giovanni, getting our clients to a settlement. And the harder we can make it for a plaintiff to pursue our clients' assets, even if our clients are in a bad position, if we can still give them some power to leverage a settlement, and they end up better off than they would be had they not had the asset protection in place, it's a success. And this is what I tell my clients. The asset protection plan, the Cook Islands Trust, is not a tool for complete and total asset protection, though it has a track record that may indicate exactly that. It is a tool to help you negotiate a settlement. And the better leverage we can get our clients to negotiate a settlement, the better their end results will be, and the more likely it is that we're going to build a happy client base.
What you said right now sounds like a movie. I'm pretty sure there has to be a movie or two about these offshore trusts, right?
I've got to say that I think it would be a pretty. I at least find it interesting. I've had other people say, "Oh, that work sounds kind of boring," but
it sounds so cool.
I think it would make a pretty cool movie. If there's any Hollywood executives out there who want to cut a scene of me taking a phone call on offshore trusts and moving some money around, I'd be happy to be in it.
It sounds so fun. There's many. We're getting to the end of the podcast, but there's so many ways to really protect assets. Like, let's say, for example, there's domestic trust too, not just offshore trust. There's also like personal liability, umbrella policies. I don't know to what extent they protect a client, but how do you differentiate when someone needs an offshore trust compared to either a domestic trust or just a personal liability umbrella policy? How do you differentiate those clients?
So let's talk about insurance first. My general rule with insurance is buy insurance. Buy as much car insurance as your agent will sell you. Our nation's highways are quickly becoming a road to wealth for a lot of people, and there are professional plaintiffs out there who get in car accidents on purpose and allege extreme damages. So the first thing to do is to get yourself as much insurance as you can buy. Buy an umbrella policy. It's going to cost you a few hundred dollars, and it's going to get you hundreds of thousands of dollars in coverage. The time that I would recommend against insurance is if you have a high-end surgeon and they are paying $100,000 a year in premiums and only getting $200,000 a year of coverage. Let's just focus on the asset protection. However, every insurance policy has a long list of exclusions, which your insurance agent probably is not going over with you at the time that you buy the policy. However, when it comes time to make a claim, they may try to hide behind one of the exclusions. Now, if it's a smaller claim, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, chances are the insurance company will pay that and want to maintain a good reputation. However, if it is a catastrophic claim, $1 million or more, there's a better chance the insurance company is going to try to avoid paying that claim. And there have been times where a doctor's accused of negligence, insurance company starts out defending them. Then the insurance company says, actually, no, we think the doctor committed gross negligence, and basically joins the plaintiff and pushes the doctor farther away because the insurance policy does not cover for gross negligence. Also, every insurance policy has a limitation, and if it's a catastrophic claim, it could go beyond policy limits. So my advice is buy insurance, but don't rely on the insurance alone. In terms of when a client needs a domestic trust or when a client needs an offshore trust, my philosophy is the client does not need a domestic trust. Yes, you can save a few $1,000s by setting up a domestic trust, but the case law with domestic trust is bad. There have been several failures of domestic trust under Article 4, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution, full faith and credit must be given to judgments of other states, meaning that if someone gets a judgment from you in a non-asset protection state, they can enforce it in their home state.
Wow.
There's just too many ways to attack a domestic trust. I'll admit, early in my career, I set up quite a few domestic asset protection trusts, and I saw how weak the bargaining power I was actually giving my clients, and I feel like it's a disservice. The domestic trust, quite frankly, just make me nervous, and I don't like to be nervous. I want to sleep well at night. I want my clients to have that same peace of mind. In the long run, if you actually have to use the plan, the domestic, in the long run, if you have to actually use the plan, the offshore trust will get a much better result, much better protection. The client and the attorney will sleep much better at night. Extremely rare circumstances I'd ever do a domestic trust. We had a client recently who had a security clearance with the U.S. government and could compromise his security clearance. So we did set up a domestic trust for them. And with that, I explained to him, this is not going to work as well as an offshore trust. It is not what I do for most clients, but in your unique circumstance, it's better to do something than nothing. But for pretty much every client, we go with the offshore planning. It's just a better result for us and the client.
Wow. And I guess also something else that plays into the equation is, I guess, number one, I think irrevocable trust would be a little bit more efficient, right? Like when you speak about domestic trust, and also if you're going to use a liability umbrella policy, number one, to speak with a insurance agent that's very knowledgeable and a company that's, I guess, trustworthy, very reputable, has a great reputation, and I mean, and a great attorney like you.
Well, thank you very much for that. Yes, you want to work with the right professionals as well. I don't sell any insurance. I don't sell any financial products of any type. I'm an attorney. I focus exclusively on exactly what we've discussed today. Trusts. But working with a good insurance agent is definitely wise. One who will sell you completely and not oversell you, that has access to a variety of different investment options. One with a good reputation who's been in the business for a while. Yes, I do generally recommend having insurance and working with someone who knows the insurance business well.
How do you define success? What's success in Blake's world?
Being able to enjoy the life that you live. Freedom is not about being able to do everything you want to do. Freedom is about being able to avoid doing the things that you don't want to do. Wow. And for some people, success is going to require them to make $10 million a year to do the things that they want to do and avoid doing the things that they don't want to do. For some people, $50,000 a year, they can live the life that they want to live. A friend of mine, when he was younger, his father was a wealthy stockbroker back in the day when there were stockbrokers. And the father said to his son, someday you're going to be able to buy anything you want to buy. Well, it wasn't until decades later that I understood what his father was telling him, which was not that you're going to be infinitely rich, but your preferences in life will evolve over time, where if you want to go surfing in Chile, if you want to take 2 weeks off during Christmas time to spend time with family, if you want to send your kids to a certain school or have a reliable car, you're going to be able to afford all of those things. So being able to live a life that you feel good about, where you feel secure about your family and your family's future, where you are doing things that you enjoy doing and you're able to avoid doing the things that you don't want to do, that to me is success. There are plenty of very wealthy people who live miserable lives. Yes. Now, I am all for accumulating wealth. I'm all for working hard and fulfilling your best possible potential, but don't get swept away thinking that the money is going to solve all of your problems. There are plenty of billionaires whose health is bad, who don't have good relationships with their family members or their partner or their friends. Happiness is more important than money, no doubt about it. Now, I do believe that money can fix a lot of the problems that cause unhappiness, but and there are more happy people who are poor than there are who are rich, just simply by there being a lot more poor people than rich people than rich people. But living a life that you're happy with is what I consider success. And with that comes peace of mind. And in order to be happy, I believe there needs to be something that you are doing that is making you feel productive. There needs to be those times spent with family and friends. There needs to be the opportunity for progress. There needs to be good health. There needs to be the things to look forward to. So success to me is living a life that you enjoy and that you can sustain.
Wow. My last question is, if you and we sit down again in 5-10 years, what are some things you hope to have accomplished, and where do you see Blake, your law firm?
So I'm going to mention one of the things that we were talking about before we turned on the video, which was my interest in developing myself on the Muay Thai front. I am planning to go camp and develop my fighting skills. I think it really rewires the brain to make you not just more protective of those you are physically around, but makes you better and tougher in business as well. And that's where I want to be in business as well too. Now, I'm not going to be stepping back from the practice of law during any of this time. I will still be making calls throughout the night, as I've done when I've gone to Asia in the past, or a time zone outside of the United States. It doesn't matter where I am. My phone rings constantly. The sun never sets on the offshore industry. But in terms of my law firm, I want us to be branded, and I do feel that we are already to a degree branded as the offshore law firm, but I want to be the go-to person for someone who's looking for any international planning. I enjoy doing these type of podcasts. I'm going to continue to spend a lot of time on camera in front of the microphone in the years to come. I want to continue to live a life of success, which means one that I am enjoying and am happy with. I want to see my children continue to grow and develop exactly as they have been, kind, happy, good people, and want to continue to build on the relationships I've built. I've been working with some people for well over a decade, and I want to see those relationships go deeper. And the farther we get into business, the deeper they become. Who I do business with is a matter of several variables, certainly one being, can they service my clients? Can they help me to grow my business? But also, do I enjoy working with them? Did I enjoy having the podcast with Giovanny? Absolutely. And I think that while I will be changing in the next 5 years, so will Giovanny. So next time we cross paths, I'm excited to hear about all of the celebrities, the real celebrities, not the pseudo celebrities, celebrities like me that you've actually gotten to be in front of. I think that growing a social media presence for both of us is wise. Anyone out there listening to this, even if you grow a small social media presence, it's better than none. The social media game, we're still at the very beginning of it, and continuing to invest in putting out quality content is going to pay its dividends in the long run. So I'd love to see social media presence continue to grow as well. I'm going to do a quick plug for myself. It's at Blake Harris Law on all of my social media platforms: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and that's my website as well, blakeharrislaw.com. Thank you for having me on your show.
Listen, it was truly an honor having you on. And in my eyes, you're a celebrity. So you have to speak about yourself.
Well, thank you.
But yeah, it was an honor having you on. I feel like what you do for a living is pretty much a movie. So if anyone watching this needs an offshore trust, Blake Harris is the man for sure.
Well, thank you so much,
Blake,
Giovanny.
It was an honor having you on. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.